Welcome to Doc Talks. I'm Will Coghill-Behrends of the Professional Development Center in the TLC. Today I'm joined by Dr. Will Liu of the Counseling Psychology Program in our College of Education. We're going to talk about the campus visit, the campus interview. Will, thanks for joining us today.
I'm glad to be here.
As students prepare for the campus visit, they may have a conference presentation or a conference interview or a phone interview.
Yes.
Let's start with those maybe screening interviews. Oh, by the way, I should mention Skype interviews or Polycom interviews are becoming more common.
Yes.
What are your thoughts about the screening interview, and how can students really seal the deal to make sure they get the ticket to the campus visit?
I think it's really important to communicate enthusiasm for the job and love for the profession and interest in the institution. I think it's very important that when you are going to see yourself on the job market, that the institutions that you're applying to, you should be doing some homework about that institution, the college, the program, the faculty, and have some of that in your head already, so that when you go to the screening interview, you have some points of connection to the person who is talking. One of the best ways to do that is to go back and read the campus student newspaper for the last month or 2 months and just see what's going on in the institution, and just so you have some point of reference when you speak to the person who's doing the screening interview. Because what they're looking for is this person interesting? Is this person interested? Do they have enthusiasm? Do I get along with them? And really what they're looking for is, at that screening piece, fit. And really fit is a huge portion of the interview. Well beyond, well, not, I shouldn't say well beyond, but certainly equally as important as your academic credentials, your research potential, all those other pieces, I think, is your personality. Can you fit into this particular environment? Right, very good. So how does an invitation to come to campus usually arrive? Email, snail mail, phone call? Usually it's I've seen them both. I think it's an email or a phone call, typically. I think most places, they want to cover their bases and make sure that you get both as soon as possible. Sure. And I think it's really important that the person who's going to be interviewed, the student or young professional, I think, understands that the interview starts right then. Right when the email or the phone call comes in, again, communicating enthusiasm and excitement and interest in going to the job interview, and communicating, I think communicating how flexible you are in some ways in terms of the accommodations for the travel and other arrangements that you might have to take. I think the interview really starts as soon as you get the phone call or the email. It's about how professional you are in keeping communications up. If there are any scheduling conflicts, how well you communicate that, how professional, how mature you are, how flexible you are. I think all of those things are important pieces that you're communicating. And then I think students and young professionals also have to start thinking about how much they want to communicate about their job interview process on other social networking sites. Very good. Most of the time, these job interviews, the candidate searches tend to be somewhat confidential, and it's not something that you want to start, I don't know, posting on a social networking site saying, "Yay, I got an interview," so it's so, someplace, because I think for many of us, we are in communities that tend to be pretty small, and it really only takes a couple of people talking, and then it gets back to the faculty or the program, and they hear about it. And they know where you're going. And so I think when you decide that you're going to be on the job market, you have to be very intentional about what you're communicating publicly. That's in writing. Very important. Most of the time it's positive, but if you write anything like, "Oh, I hated that place," I mean, that gets back, and that will sink you, and that'll be it. Probably no matter where you're applying. Right. How can you involve your advisor or faculty on campus before you leave campus to go to the campus interview? Talk to them about questions. Talk to them about what you should be expecting in terms of working at that institution. If they know anybody there, helping you draft your research presentation, helping you negotiate and understand what what kind of questions they're going to be asking you. You know, things like, well, what courses would you imagine teaching? Understanding a little bit, maybe potentially about the internal politics, personalities of any particular department or program. I think is important to know. Most of the time, when you're visiting on the interview, everybody's on their best behavior, which is fine. But I think you should also have some understanding as to, well, what really is going on? You know, do they all really get along, or what are the kind of things should I know? What kind of things should I not say, really, and just avoid it altogether?
Should one anticipate that references and letters of recommendation, if they've asked for them, have been read or contacted prior to the campus visit?
Most of the time, I think most of the time they've already made those contacts. It really depends on the institution and the program. Sometimes they don't do the background reference contacts until after they've made their short list and they've decided, okay, we're going to pursue it, pursue this person, and so we're going to get some background information. But especially at the assistant level, I think most of those are complete application packages, so they come with reference letters and recommendations and all those things. So most of the time at the entry level, most of that is already a part of their interview package.
Right. So you arrive, let's say at the airport, you're ready to go, you get off the plane. What should your state of mind be as you're preparing to meet, most likely, the chair of the search committee or a department faculty member?
You're on.
Yeah.
You're on the interview. This is you are at that moment presenting your best face forward. It could be the department chair, it could be a program chair, it could be another faculty, it could be a student that's coming to pick you up. No matter who it is, you're always on, you're always professional, you're always mature. Arriving at the airport, I would say, you don't have to be dressed in a suit. Certainly, I think there's a lot of allowances to be dressed very casually as you fly in. So that level, I'm not...
Probably no sweatpants, though.
Probably not sweatpants. Nothing with an elastic waistband. But I think at that level, there's some allowances. But certainly, your demeanor and your professionalism has to be present. One of the things that I often tell my students as they go on to campus interviews and such is one of the things that they really need to pack for themselves is protein bars. They need to pack Cliff bars or whatever protein bars that they have, because you will not eat at any of the functions that they've set up to eat, because you're constantly talking.
Sure.
And so what I suggest to them is when they wake up before the breakfast meeting, they've got to eat. They got to eat something before that meeting, because they're likely not to eat at breakfast. They've got to moderate their coffee intake if they do drink coffee. Make sure that they drink lots of water, and if they do have any downtime, for instance, a few minutes before the research presentation is a good time to eat something that they've packed in their briefcase or in their bag, because there really is no time to get enough sustenance in during the eating meetings, because you're constantly talking. And what I found in my personal experience is I often get dehydrated if I don't drink enough water, because I'm constantly drinking coffee.
Yeah.
I realize that I haven't eaten, and so by the time you get back to your hotel room, you're just fatigued, you're exhausted.
Sure.
And often you still have another half day or maybe a full other day of interviews. And so being able to take care of yourself at that eating level is very important.
Sure. Depending on the institution type or size, most campus visits will involve some sort of interaction or activity with undergraduate students or graduate students, maybe even both, depending on the population. How does one prepare for that? What should one expect? What are some of the probably most important things that candidates should do when they're interacting with students?
Know that you're not their friend. Know that you're not going to be their buddy, and know that you're not trying to be cool in front of them, that you're likely to be a professor, that you're going to be their faculty member. You don't have to come across as arrogant, but you do have to understand that there's some boundary there that you have to respect. And so you can be friendly, but you're certainly not at that level where you're trying to be their friend. And I think that's one of the things that some young professionals fall into. I think that's one of the problems that they get into is they sometimes are the same age, but they really at that moment have to start establishing some boundaries, because one of the issues that the students will bring back to the faculty as part of that interview is they just came across as really immature. I can't see them in front of me as the faculty. I couldn't respect them if they told me to do something because they're trying to be my friend, and that's not something you want operating against you. I think that works against you to even if you're the same age as some of the grad students, and that's likely to happen, you have to understand I'm going to be a faculty member, and I need to start establishing these reasonable, mature professional boundaries now. How am I going to do this? Because if you can't do that at that interview, you're likely not going to be able to do that when you arrive on campus.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Teaching presentations, just as common as research presentations.
Yeah.
What should one do? How should one prepare?
Yeah.
If given maybe a blank invitation, teach whatever you want, what kind of activity should one go for?
I think you should teach what you know. And even if it's related, if a faculty says, listen, you come into my classroom and teach a topic, whatever topic that you want, sometimes you try to fit it into some topic that the faculty might teach. I think that often works okay. But the most important thing is that I think you have to teach what you know, the content area that you're most familiar with. When you get in there, present it, you've got to think about the likelihood is that the audience knows nothing about this, and so again, how do I move this audience from not knowing foundational information and building it up to something that they can think about? Typically in an hour presentation, I think one of my professors gave me this suggestion, and I've always held to it, which is in a 60-minute presentation, you have opportunity to present one cogent idea, and you shouldn't go beyond that. And typically, if you operate around that, you fill in the time very quickly in terms of walking an audience member that knows nothing about your presentation or topic from A to Z, from 0 to 10. So that's important. And one of the things that I've also not appreciated about other people who've come into my classroom is assuming that I've covered material as part of their presentation. So I'll invite somebody to come in and they'll say, well, Will may have talked to you about this already, and I think that's one way to join, but it often comes across as I think it comes across as insecure about their presentation. I think what you need to go in there is think about, this is my teaching presentation. This is encapsulated. It may have no connections to anything else going on.
Everything you need to know is right here.
Everything you need to know is
minutes,
right here, and I'm presenting it. And this is what I know well, and this is what I can speak to. And what they're looking for, the students as well as the faculty, is, do you have a presence in the classroom? Can you teach? Can you field questions well? Do you know the material? Can you present the material that you're saying this is your material? Can you present it well? And I think that's the one area you need to be very confident about and able to articulate clearly.
Right, very good. So understand the context. What
Yes.
class have they invited me to teach?
Yes.
Understand the audience.
Yes.
And then remember, you have to, whatever it is you do, it has to be compact.
It has to be compact,
Very
right?
good,
Right. It has
very
to
good.
fit into that time. So being sensitive to the time is always important.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming probably also have a high level of student engagement.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
very
think
good.
they're looking for the ways that you engage
Yeah.
students. Do you ask questions? Do you ask open-ended questions? Do you ask closed-ended questions? Is it a topic that students can be really interested about? Can you make tie-ins to other student interests? How do you field difficult questions?
Sure.
Again, all of those things really speak to your ability to think off the top of your head,
Yeah.
move around in a classroom. And in that capacity, I think students need to take every opportunity that they can to present, to
Right.
practice.
The campus visit will have small group interactions like the interview with the search committee, or maybe some dinner parties, dinner meetings. Large group interactions like your teaching presentation or research presentation. But then there are typically a few key kind of one-on-one moments, say with the department chair, search chair, dean of the college. How does one connect with those people in such a short period of time?
Often those meetings are 15 minutes, a half hour, maybe an hour at the most. I think even though most of the deans defer to the program and department to make those hiring decisions, I think you still need to communicate to the department chair or the dean how you're going to contribute to the college. I think there's a lot of expectations from deans and department chairs for you to communicate your ability to get external funding, or even just look for it. I think you don't have to have necessarily a record of external funding, but I think you have to have some idea that you can and want to get external funding as part of your research, as part of your teaching, your service. But one way that you can often connect with them is that you have some idea about opportunities for external funding. And they don't have to be huge grants of hundreds and thousands of dollars or millions of dollars, but I think you do have to communicate, this is how I understand the field. I'm connected to the discipline and the scholarship. I understand where some of the monies may be, and if I wanted to, let's say, do this book project or do this other service project, I have some idea as to how I might go about getting external funding. And I think that often speaks well to the values as well as the pressures that deans and department chairs are often feeling about just money. Besides that, I think, like I said, communicating your enthusiasm about being there, how you're going to contribute to the program, how you're going to help students, and how do you see yourself becoming prominent in your field, in your discipline.
This is a good topic, a good point that you bring up. Some students have opportunities while they're in grad school to seek external funding via travel grants, small awards, that kind of thing. Some, however, don't, right? And so they kind of enter the academic job market without having a track record for this. Some students, unfortunately, also enter the academic market without a track record of publications. How do you handle that topic, that maybe, let's say, absence of, or the perception that there's an absence there when asked?
Oh, yeah, that's kind of a tough question. It depends on the institution, it depends on the program. I think if you don't have an explicit record of grant funding of any sort, even if it's a small travel grant or something, I think you've got to be prepared to talk about it. Why haven't you applied to any? And it might be simply, oh, well, most of the conferences that I attended were local. It could be also, I was on a training grant, so I paid for all of it, so I never had to apply for anything. But so it could be a simple matter of logistics, but you do have to be prepared to talk about it. The grant funding, I think, is minor when compared to not having any publications. I think students who are applying for a research institution have to have some publication. I can't imagine a research institution hiring somebody without at least one publication of some sort. And that, although you could sort of get around a little bit by having conference presentations, and so you have some record of scholarly participation. I think that's important. Sometimes, depending on the discipline, you might not be able to present, you might not get small papers published, but instead your publication is a book that comes out of your dissertation. So you might be working on your dissertation saying, I've got a book contract and this is how I'm going to be, this is my first publication, this is my book. And depending on the discipline in the college, the books are really the most important product that you can produce. In other departments, it's peer refereed publications. So I think depending on the scholarship and the discipline, I think it varies depending on what weight they put on certain publications. But I think for students now, they have to have some record of scholarly participation, conference presentations, second, third, fourth author on something, something that speaks to their record, that when they can get into an academic position, that they have some momentum behind them, and that they can hit the ground running in some ways. But one of the questions that's invariably comes up in academic interviews is, tell me about your research line, and what do you envision the next few years? How are you going to go about doing that? And you can, and at that level, you can say, well, listen, I've got these projects lined up. This is how it's going to go. I envision that it's going to go in this particular direction, and I have a book project that I'd like to do it. But thinking logically, reasonably, what you think can occur. But what they're also listening to is, how are you going to move a project from this point to a published point? And the only way that you can speak to it is that you have some experience moving a publication from an idea to publication.
Yeah, right.
And you have to be able to speak about it, saying, okay, well, I've also got this idea. I think it's going to take me this long to get the subjects or participants for this study. I think it'll take me a couple months to interview them, to analyze the data. I expect to publish in this particular journal. I think the review process is this long. So for this particular idea, I think it'll take me 2 years. And often it takes that long to get something from idea to publication. Right. So for me, when I'm listening to young faculty or new faculty, that's what I'm listening for is, do they have a reasonable idea of how long it's going to take? Because when it comes to their promotion from assistant to associate, they've got to have some track record to be able to come up for promotion.
Yeah.
So.
Another difficult interview question is the question about service, activity outside of the campus. How are you serving the community?
Yes.
Some grad students, get an A+ in that area.
Yes.
Some maybe are maybe short of some of those experiences.
Right.
How does one, kind of connect what they do to both the professional organization or associations that they serve, but also maybe to the community, especially like in a public institution in Iowa?
Many of the national institutions, national organizations have opportunities for students to get involved with them very early on. And it's volunteering at a booth, it's volunteering at a hospitality suite, it's also volunteering to review manuscripts and conference presentations. So I think they've got to turn to their advisor or their faculty and start asking them, what are my opportunities to start getting involved in this particular national organization that's pertinent to my job field and my discipline. It could be 2 or 3 for some disciplines, and I think they've got to start getting involved. They've got to start going to the conferences. So that will help them get involvement and some connection at that national level. At the local level, I think that's where the student, young professional really needs to do their homework about the locale they're going to and how they're going to connect their disciplinary interests or their scholarly interests potentially with some community outreach. And so most communities are open for that kind of collaboration with faculty, but it really depends on what their interest is and how they can get involved. But I do think it is important to be able to communicate that they have some interest in being involved in the community, because what that speaks to the faculty is, oh, they're interested in staying here. So they want to start setting down roots into the community. So I'm not worried potentially that I'm going to put in all this time mentoring this young faculty member for 3 or 4 years and they're going to go somewhere else, but they have some interest in staying. And when you make a commitment to a young new professional, you really do hope that they stay, because you want them to be a colleague of yours and you want them to be a life of the program. And so knowing that a new professional, young professional is interested in branching out and getting involved locally, I think, is an important hallmark of their interest in staying in the community.
Will, it's been great talking with you
Thanks.
today.
Thank
You're a wellspring of great information,
you.
so
Thanks.
thanks for being with us.
Thank you.